My name is Mallory Aarons. I'm the head of adult programming at Darien Library, and I have the absolute best job in the place. I get to handle all the fun stuff. My job entails managing about 350 to 400 programs a year. We offer at Darien Library a wide array of programs, anything from the history of the Brooklyn Bridge to an introduction to online dating to understanding wine. So Nick Troilio and I have worked together in the past. He's a playwright, so he's very involved in an annual event we do, the Catherine Lindsay Memorial Playwrights Workshop. He's always been a pleasure to work with. Him and I joke around that he's a ham. He loves the stage in a variety of ways, can talk about anything, is a fantastic storyteller.
What's the big deal about wine, water, and grapes? Well, I guess the big deal is that all those things give you pleasure. And so when you take grapes and God-given water, bring them together, and then the art of the winemaker comes into play, who is able to take what happened in the vineyard, what happened with the sunshine, what happened with the clouds, what happened to the rain, and then bring that to you. So it's a great gift that it's an artistic expression of vinification, and it's an artistic expression of farming. Well, how many of you are Darien residents? All right, Darien residents. So we have a good crowd from Darien. And how about the general area, Norwalk, Greenwich, Sanford? All right, so we've pretty well covered all the territory. Did I get Fairfield? All right, so you have a long haul. Do you have an Uber account? No? a designated driver? Yeah. We only have 2 wines to taste tonight, so I think we're going to be just fine. So you know the routine. When you arrive, we're asking you to select a spot and just put your 2 glasses at that spot. And then when we get around to the tasting format, we'll get you up to the tables and get you tasting some wine. Now, don't get nervous. We're only going to give you a little tasting sample of the wine. So if you stand around and say, wait a minute, I wanted the whole glass, you're not going to get a glass of wine tonight. In total, you may end up with a glass of wine, but this is a tasting event, and it's an educational experience. So we want you to walk away from this evening with good information that helps you to be a better buyer and primarily to enjoy wine a little more. But I hate to start the evening off on a negative note, but earlier today I was telling Mallory about the power of social media and some impact that it had on our business. And I saw, just before I arrived here tonight, a very disturbing piece of information on social media. And it ranked the towns in Connecticut. And I was embarrassed to tell you this, but Darien was ranked as the 23rd, that low, drunkenest town in the state of Connecticut. Now, how embarrassing is that? All of your neighboring towns made the top 10, right? But Darien was number 23, and they rated that, they designed that, developed that number based upon the number of divorces, the number of DUIs, the number of abuse cases in the town. So congratulations to all of you. And how about that Weston and Westport? I'll tell you, those folks in town, I don't know what they do. They don't go to the library for educational meetings, I can tell you that. So as we begin this evening, every speaker that stands up in front of a group of people likes to walk away from the evening knowing that they've achieved something that the audience wanted them to achieve. So why don't you just tell me here and there some ambition that you have for tonight, or what would make you think that you walked away with a successful with spending an hour with me as a success, just so I know how to direct my efforts and how to direct my conversation. Yes, sir. So the question was, what about these ratings? You know, Robert Parker, he rates wines on 100% on a 100-point scale. The Wine Spectator rates wines every month. There's thousands and thousands of numbers to look at. And sometimes you'll buy a wine based upon the rating, and you'll be disappointed in it. And another time, you'll buy a bottle of wine, and that was very modestly priced and no one knows about, and you'll take it home and enjoy it. So one of the goals for tonight's class is that you don't buy wine based upon ratings. You know, ratings are a good indicator for you to sort of know in the reputation of the winemaker. But if anyone ever walks into our shop here in Darien and says, I want a 90-pointer, we tell them to go someplace else, right? Because you don't buy wine based upon points, right? So those are good indicators and good things to follow, but you have to read it with your own intelligence and know what you like. And then the other thing that you might buy a bottle of wine that is very inexpensive and you enjoy. Enjoyment of wine has a great deal to do with the atmosphere in which you drink it. So, you know, I always get a kick of people that come back from their honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast and say, we had this great bottle of wine and we need you to get it for us because we want to remember our honeymoon. And they come back and they say, well, we drank it Tuesday night after work and it didn't taste the same. And we say, yeah, you know, for 10 days you lay naked on the beach making love 3 times a day, and then you drank the bottle of wine. On Tuesday you went to work and came home and ate mac and cheese and expected that wine to taste exactly the same. It doesn't work that way. You know, so a lot of dealing with the wine that you drink has to do with the atmosphere in which you use it. The first thing that you need to do this evening is to stimulate your senses and know about your senses. So, you know, we have 5 that we talk about: our ability to see, to hear, to feel, to smell, and to taste. So we're going to just play with those things a little bit. If I asked you to think of your favorite color, 90% of you would say red, but if you close your eyes and I'm going to ask you to do this. If you would close your eyes and try to think of your favorite color. Just close your eyes, go into your Zen moment, and think of your favorite color. You can visualize it. And now I'm going to ask you to think of a tune that you like, some music that you like. And again, sort of go into that Zen moment and hear the tune playing. So we can see, we can recreate our sense of sight, and we can recreate our sense of hearing. Some of you are old enough to remember the movie When Harry Met Sally. Remember that movie? And Rob Reiner's mother who played the scene, right? I want what she's having, right? And she was able to recreate a feeling. So you close your eyes and recreate a feeling, not that one. So close your eyes and try to recreate a feeling that you've had. Yeah, you can do that. But the one thing that we can't recreate is the sense of smell. If I asked you to think of the last time you walked through Chinatown or Uncle's Deli on Saturday morning where they were frying, 17 pounds of bacon all at once, and you tried to recreate the smell of frying bacon or recreate the smell of Chinatown or Little Italy or your own kitchen, you can't do it because the sense of smell is the only sense that we can't recall. We can't recall the sense of smell. And enjoying wine is being able to have a developed sense of smell is one of the most important aspects of enjoying wine. I mean, there's lots of other things, but no flavors that we experience come from the palate. The palate only has sensations, but all the flavors that we experience come from the nose. And it's so the most difficult thing to develop is the sense of smell. So that's why this evening when I say to you, do you smell that little hint of gooseberry in the wine? You're going to say to me, it smells like grapes. Right? Because that's what happens. We really have to train our ability to smell because it is the only sense that we can't recall. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about what happens on the palate. And we used to talk about how the palate specifically, specific areas of the palate affected a sense only certain things, right? But most scientists now say that that's only somewhat true, right? But the basic thing is to say the way the tongue works is still somewhat true. So we're going to do this exercise. If everyone could stick their tongue out and pull it out with their fingers. Just kidding. On the very tip of your tongue, here, you're shaking your head. You know what you taste there. Who knows? No. Sugar. Yeah, the tip of your tongue is where we get the sense, primarily the sense of sweetness. On the side of the tongue, we get acid, right? So the side is acid. Sugar, acid. In the back of the tongue, we get tannins, right? Then we use the palate, the tongue, to judge weight and texture. Right? So when we're tasting wine, the first thing we're going to do is smell it and see what the flavors are from our nose, the hardest part. And then we're going to experience on the palate the wine, sensing the sugar, the sweetness that we experience, the acid that we experience, the tannins that we experience. And then we're going to judge the weight of the wine and the body or the texture of the wine. So that's how we examine wine and how we look at it on a professional level. And if you start to do that, you'll be doing it with you'll have a much more enjoyable experience. It's one of the reasons why when we say, when you go to a wine tasting, right, don't smoke, don't wear cologne, or don't wear a heavy perfume. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it, where you went to a restaurant and sat down at a table, and the couple at the table next to you, each of them loaded down with aftershave or perfume. You can't enjoy your food. You cannot enjoy your food. So when you go to a wine tasting, we say, make sure that you don't come with cologne or perfume. I mean, we want you to wash and be clean, right? But don't overload with perfume or cologne, and don't smoke unless you're Italian. Italians always smoke at wine tastings. Any case, so the nose is extremely important, and that's the thing that's hardest to train because of that principle that we cannot recall the sense of smell. And then if we begin to sense the sense of sugar, a good way to test yourself, if this evening when you go home or in the morning or at some point, is to take just make some boiling water and add a tablespoon of sugar. Mix some sugar and water and taste it. You can stick your tongue in it and you'll get all the sensation of the sweetness. And then add some lemon juice to it. And then you'll have sugar and lemon juice, and you'll see lemon juice on the acidity side. And then take that same cup of water and dunk 3 tea bags in it. And the 3 tea bags will give you the tannins or the bitterness at the back. So you'll have sugar, acid, and tannins or bitterness, and you'll experience the sort of things, those are the things that we get on our palate. Ask me a question. No? Okay. Then I'm going to keep talking, but we're soon going to have a glass of wine. Because one time when I did this talk, a woman in the back of the room was raising her hand furiously, please call on me. I took a bunch of questions. Finally, I called on her. She said, when the hell are we going to get a drink? So we have a few more minutes yet. So there we go. Those are the things that we want to work on, is to be able to learn how to use our nose to gather the aroma of the wine. But if you come back for the second course, we'll talk more about the terminology that we use in wine. Tonight, we're going to taste just 2 examples of white wine grapes. We'll taste the Sauvignon Blanc grape, and then we'll taste a Chardonnay grape. The Sauvignon Blanc grape is a little producer that we buy from a guy named Guy Saget. It's a French Sauvignon Blanc. The Chardonnay is a very typical California Chardonnay. I'll talk with you about some terms, but when we get up to our table, the library very kindly made copies of, this is the famous flavor wheel that we give to our staff when they're learning to understand wine, and you're going to get a copy of that tonight. And it tells you all the things to look for in the wine. So you'll see here, it gives you the fruity characteristics. The fruit that you could see in wine are citrus, grapefruit or lemon, berries, blackberry, raspberry, strawberry, blackcurrant, tree fruit, cherries, apricots, peaches, apples, tropical fruit, lychee nuts, pineapple, melon, banana, dried fruit, strawberry jam, raisin, prune, fig, other artificial fruit, and methyl antiorate, which is sort of a foxy smell. So one of the things that we look and judge a good winemaker, the job of a winemaker is to put you in the place. And what that means is you'll hear us or wine people talk about the terroir. So we want to be able to say, when I drink this wine, I know what it felt like to sit in this tiny region of Bordeaux in the vintage of 2012. Because I can taste the soil, I can taste the weather, I can sense the vine, because the winemaker brought his or her talent to achieving that. So when we talk about the terroir, we're really talking about how the grapes, the vines, reflect the land. And that's how we begin to judge the value of a wine. Because how does a vine grow? Which way? Down. The roots grow down into the ground, and then the vine comes up. And so as the roots grow deeper and deeper and deeper, that's why you'll see some people talk about, well, they're 40-year-old vines. Okay, when they're 40-year-old vines, it means that the roots of the vine have gone deep into the ground. And one of the most expensive wines on the market is a wine called Petrus. And one of the reasons that makes it so expensive is that the property that in Bordeaux was the bottom of the meltage during the Jurassic Ice Age. And what happened was, as all this material melted down and down and down and down and down, it gathered all sorts of stuff from the rest of Europe. And it landed in this little spot in Bordeaux. And so as those vines are now 70 years old, and they're deep, 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 and when the rain comes down, like Inky Dinky Spider ran up when the rain comes down, right, it seeks into the ground. And then the roots suck it up, and the water goes through clay and stone and limestone and sand. And as it does, it picks up those flavors. And it takes the water and deposits it into the grape. So when you taste those grapes, you're going to get that 100 years old a variety of different soils. So that's what's important about the age of a vine, because how deep it is tells you the different varieties of taste that will come up from the soil into the grape. It's also the things that why we study and look at things like when the grapes were picked in the vineyard, because the most famous saying in winemaking is, we pick before the rain. That's like saying, I'll love you tomorrow, or I'll call you tomorrow. But we pick before the rain, because what happens if they pick after the big rain? What happens to the grapes? They'll mold, but before they mold, what happens? Yeah, no, they'll be loaded with water, right? Because they're going to suck up the rain, from the vines, from the roots, and they're going to travel through. And so instead of having a good concentration of juice, you're going to have a weak concentration of juice because you're going to get a lot of water. So those are some of the things as wine merchants that we watch. We watch the weather reports to know what's going to happen. We can sort of know what's going to happen in the vintage, who the winemaker is. And as we know, good winemaker makes a good wine in any vintage because they'll discard the bad stuff. Now, some wines do rot. And as you know, there is another kind of wine that's made from rotted grapes. But that's another subject entirely, which we won't talk about. Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am. Foxy. Yeah, there's all kinds of things, like it's not going to be in this Sauvignon Blanc, but a good Sauvignon Blanc from France, from Bordeaux Sauvignon Blanc. Typically, we talk about things like cat piss, excuse it. But, I mean, that's the smell that you get on really good French Sauvignon Blanc is the cat urine. But that's what you look for. You'll find in some red wines, you'll see terms like wet dog or wet cardboard. Sometimes, and some people like that. But there are also characteristics where you really sense the soil, and you'll get that barnyardy aroma on red wines, which becomes rather attractive at times, So, but it really depends on the quality of the wine. So we're going to you're going to see on the wine wheel, and that, yes, ma'am.
You said that good winemaker makes good wine any year. So how do you know which one is good? The store is so big.
Well, when what is so big?
When I go to the store, there's so many of these winemakers.
Right.
So how do I know which one is the good one?
Well, you talk to the merchant, and the merchant will know that's the merchant's job is to be able to tell you what they've selected and why they've selected that. The business of retail in wine has changed dramatically, and it's going mostly on the negative side with the big, huge discounters that are around. And there was a horrifying story on PBS a few months ago where they showed you the wine buyers from Costco. And the chief wine buyer from Costco said to the staff that I never want to hire anyone that knows anything about wine. And then they were in meeting with a major Bordeaux owner, a chateau owner in Bordeaux in the PBS film. And they were talking about the production of the wine in that area. And one of the buyers said, oh, I think we'd like a little more fig in the wine. And another was saying, oh, I think it should be a little more pruny. Well, they were telling this famous chateau owner what to do with his wine, rather than what I said makes good wine, which is a reflection of the soil and the vintage. They were instructing them telling him what they think they could sell to the marketplace. And we see that in tons and tons and tons and tons of the popular labels that come out to the marketplace. We talked about, or we always talk about now, what killed the Australian wine market was a product called Yellowtail, which came out, and people drank this junk by the gallons, and it was terrible stuff. And suddenly, all of the Australian wine market tried to imitate it. And they then began what we refer to in the industry as animal wines, because every bottle had a picture of some animal on them. But they ruined the Australian wine market. Nobody would want to touches mostly of the Australian wines anymore because they were these fatty, ugly, sugary, junky wines that the American market suddenly loved. But that's another whole kind of, if you want to come for an evening to talk about the retail wine industry or how to buy wine, you'll have to pay a lot of money for that.
Back to, I think, are we supposed to be looking for those smells, the cat urine and the fox? I don't know
Well,
what fox smells like, so.
yeah. What happens when you buy wine is that the first thing to do is to develop your own particular palate. If you like sugar, drink sugar. You know, if you don't like sugar, don't look for sugar. Don't look for those sort of wines. But the first thing is to be able to enjoy the wine based upon how you develop your palate, and that's really what tonight is all about. To give you some indication of what to look for when you're tasting and buying. It's essentially your own palate, but your palate needs to be trained. And the first place to start is the Schnazola. Okay? All right. Any other questions that you might have?
No,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
curious. So California must be producing some really good wine.
Well,
Some places.
yeah, there's two parts to that. Of course, if drought is never good because drought dries everything up. So the grapes need water. The point I was making is that when the grapes are picked, if they're picked, if we have a deluge, 2 weeks of rain in the end of September, the beginning in October, and the vineyard hasn't not yet picked the grapes, those grapes are going to be very watery. So they're not going to be a concentration of juice. The other thing to know is that because of the mass production of wine, there was a great guy who just wrote an article for one of the papers in California about one of the mass producers, and they farm in long lines, straight lines. So because they harvest with tractors, and so if they harvest with tractor, the longer the lines of the vines, the less turning they have to do, and the more economical that it becomes. But when you machine harvest, what happens as the machine goes through? It picks up everything, which could be a little field mouse, a bird's nest, a bird, whatever. And then it goes into a big vat, and it's all ground up. So some of those things that you might buy for $8 a bottle for 1.5, don't buy them if you're a vegetarian. Because in truth, many of those wines are, they're mass produced. When a guy has to make 16,000 gallons of wine every day, you're not going to have an artistic approach to it. Now, having said all that, why don't we try to taste something? So the first thing we're going to taste is this little Sauvignon Blanc, and my elves will go to work on pouring. As I said, we're going to give you a taste, and if I could... yeah, the question is there a difference between a cork and... that's fine. And a screw top. Many top producers are going to screw tops because you often hear the word when we smell a wine, we say it's corked. And because cork is a natural product, it can rot if it's not inserted into the bottle properly. Then you might get this corky smell that makes the wine not deal with. So one of the things, work right. So many top producers, but that's the capitalization issue, because moving from equipment where they have to put a cork in a bottle and cap it to equipment where they have now a new type of bottle with a screw top and a cap is a capital expense for them. So the people in the business are looking at all those issues. But some top wines that we could sell for $200 or $300 have screw caps on them now. Yeah. So don't worry about the cap. So the first thing, let's wait to. Why don't you sort of head? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, glassware is a big issue. I asked you to bring your own glass. I said clear because, yeah. The second way, the second step of enjoying wine is to look at the color, right? You can't look at the color of the wine and enjoy the color of the wine if you have a blue glass. Okay, so
Nick, what's the air, what's the whole thing with the air on the wine?
yeah, we'll get to that. Just give me a few minutes. Let's get everybody settled.
I don't have seats. I'm a floater.
Oh, you're a floater. We have. No, well, we need to find more places. You need a space. Okay, now this is going to be a challenge for me, and I'm not sure where to go. But the first thing that you need to learn about drinking wine, if you want to be a bit of a wine snob and get invited to New Canaan and Greenwich parties, the first thing you need to know is how to hold your glass properly. So how do you hold a wine glass properly? All right, so who's holding the wine glass by the stem? All right, that's almost right. All right, the place that we don't want to hold the glass by is by the bowl. And why do we not want to hold the glass there?
To warm it?
It warms it, for one thing. And as I said, the second enjoyable part about wine is its color. So if you're an Italian like me, you always have oil on your hands. And if you hold the bowl of the glass, you're going to finger mark it, and it's going to interfere with your enjoyment of the color. So most people will think that the proper way to hold the wine glass is by the stem. But if you want to be a wine snob, how does a wine snob hold a glass? By the base. So if you want to be a wine snob, and hang out and talk to these attractive women with fancy jewelry, and just say hi at a Greenwich cocktail party, you want to hold the wine glass by the base like this. Okay, and why do we want to hold the wine glass like this by the base? It's because it gives you the ability to do the sort of things that we're going to do tonight. And you don't do this necessarily at a party, but the first judgment that we make, or the second judgment, as I said, that adds to the enjoyment of the wine, is looking at the color, right? So one of the things we do, and as you'll see on your wheel chart, your flavor wheel, it will start to identify some of the colors. So when we're evaluating wine or want to look at wine professionally, we want to give the color a name because all wines will have different colors. So this is using your sense of sight. What do you see in the glass? Yeah, and I would turn the paper around and hold it against the white background so you can see the color. And then we take the glass and tilt the glass, and then we look at the wine in the glass in two other spots. One is the rim of the wine, what it looks like on the edge. And the lighter the edge, generally the younger the wine. So this is more important it's important in whites, but it becomes more important in reds because if this rim is light, that tells us that it's relatively young. In a red wine, as this becomes browner and brickier, we'll know that the wine is an older vintage. And then we look at the wine in the center to judge the clarity of the color. And then we make comments about it. It has... What's so funny about that? You say, hey, sweetheart, isn't this great? It has a nice golden color to it. Right? So you talk about the color of the wine, and it gives you a sense, is this the color that we think Sauvignon Blanc should be? And as you learn about various Sauvignon Blancs, that's generally a good Sauvignon Blanc. But color also gives you a hint of what to expect when you finally get it on your palate. So looking at this, do you think it's going to be a light wine, light on the palate when you weigh it on your tongue? Do you think it's going to be heavy or weighty? Do you think it's going to be velvety smooth, like a piece of silk? Or do you think it's going to be astringent and sort of acidic? Yeah, you kind of begin to make judgments based upon the color. So tilting the glass and holding it by the base rather than by the stem allows you to do this without spilling it, right? And so you can look at the color at 3 places. We look at it head on, then we look at the middle, and then we look at the rim. The next thing we do with the wine is swirl it. So it's easy to swirl the wine. Right? Why do we swirl it? To what? Get some more air into it. And as we swirl the wine, the air will give off more of the aroma. So the next thing we do is get our nose into it. So this is not like gently smelling it. This is like sticking your nose in the glass. I'm taking. There should be a sound when you do this. Not at the Greenwich cocktail party, but in class tonight, right? There should be a sound when you stick your nose into the glass. When you stick your nose into the glass, we should hear some sounds. So now you begin to see the importance. And this is a good time now to look at your flavor wheel. Because remember, what do you get from the nose? All the flavors. All the flavors of the wine you're going to get from your nose. So stick your nose in that glass. Keep smelling it. Keep smelling it. And start to identify what you smell. Okay. And I will accept that you might say tonight, I smell grapes. But, that's the beginning level. But I'm going to give you a little hint. Look for the citrus flavors. Particularly on this wine, I think lemon jumps right out at you. So it always happens, though, once I tell you, you say, yeah, I smell the lemon. But, again, now put your nose into the glass and look for the smell of lemon, right? So citrus. And you get grapefruit, okay? So lemon and grapefruit, yes, ma'am. Oh, no, the color on the wheel doesn't have anything to do with the flavors in the wine. It does not. I'm sorry if that's misleading. The purple color does not mean the wine is purple and when it tastes of lemon. Okay, so now we've done, I'm losing you. Now we've done 2 things. We swirled the wine. We sniffed the wine. And now we get to slurp the wine. This is not drinking. This is slurping. And in order to get the full flavor of the wine, what you need to do is take in air with your nose as you suck the wine into the palate, right? So, and again, not at the cocktail party, but tonight in class, we're going to do this, and we have to hear noise. So we're going to swirl it, sniff it. And then once you get it on the palate, you're going to swish it around because you want it to cover the tip, the sides, the back. And then there are spit buckets in the middle, because we sniff, swirl, sniff, swirl, sniff, slurp, and spit. But there's such little wine tonight. If you want to drink it,
Some already have.
go ahead. But save some in your glass. Don't drink it all. We want you to save some in your glass. So when we look at the second wine, we'll be able to tell the differences. Okay, so let's hear the noise. We have to hear the noise. You're going to... Ready? There, she's doing it perfectly. And swish it all around your palate and you see how the acidity comes out. Yeah, see how the acidity comes out on the side. You're feeling it on the side and a little bit in the back. Okay, that is sort of classic Sauvignon Blanc, and it's a very modest example of Sauvignon Blanc. So why don't you take your glass and grab any seat so that our pourers can pour the second glass for you. Oh, yeah. Well, you can leave your glass at the seat at the place or take it with you. We're going to fill the second glass now. But we're not going to get into that tonight. Okay, we poured you a glass of Chardonnay. Take your glass of Sauvignon Blanc. Don't finish it with you, right? And if you did finish it, there's another thing that we can do. And now let's come up and let's taste the Chardonnay. I know I only have 10 minutes. I have to get you out of here by 8 o'clock. So we're going to do the same thing. You're going to pick up the glass, but I'm going to ask you to do a two-fisted job. So take your glass of Chardonnay and your glass of Sauvignon Blanc. And, oh, wonderful. Okay, so right away, you begin to see the difference. Okay, so right away you begin to see the difference. You see, if you hold your glasses this way, if you hold your glasses this way, you'll see the difference between the two colors. All right? So there you are, a difference. And which one is more golden? The Chardonnay. All right, look at the good eye that you have. All right, so there you are. You see the Chardonnay is much more golden. So now let's swirl it, open it up a little bit. Open it up a little bit. Give it a good sniff. And look to see what you smell. So you start to get now on the Sauvignon Blanc, we had mostly citrus. Here we start to get some of the bigger pit fruit, like peaches, right, and nectarines, right. There's some oak on the wine. What happens with this wine, it has what they call malolactic fermentation. And what that means is that after the initial fermentation of the wine, they use another yeast that extracts some of the lactic acid, so it's not so buttery. But then this wine is in what they call fermented in stainless steel. But the final process, it spends about 8 months in oak. So you'll get a little hazelnut, a little oakiness on the wine, a little peach and nectarine. So let's swirl this up, do the same process, give it a good sniff, and then slurp it up. Sounds, we need sounds now. Swoosh it around in your mouth. Right? And now let's go back to the Sauvignon Blanc. If you don't have any more, you can smell it in your glass, and you'll be able to smell the two differences. Mallory, is there any more Sauvignon Blanc? If anybody doesn't have any in their glass, we can get some. So, yeah, if you don't have any, Sauvignon Blanc in your glass, raise your Sauvignon Blanc glass up, and someone will come around. Yeah, but no fair just slugging it down now, so you get more.
Where'd she go?
Right. So now it's a good example is to go back to the Sauvignon Blanc, smell it, put it on the palate, and you'll see a remarkable difference between two wines.
Harrison, how can you really, Nick, I still have the taste of this one, and now I got the taste of this one. How can I really tell the difference? Is it really happening?
It takes a long time to be able to do that. Yeah, so why don't you grab your color wheel? Well, you can leave them for now. Why don't you grab your two glasses and get back to a seat? Mallory, she needs some wine. Oh, it's McManus. Yeah, I'll tell you about it. No, it's California. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyone need any more? Mallory's here.
Well, I see no one uses spit buckets. I was just asked the question at wine tastings, there's often crackers and cheese. The axiom in my business is that you buy on bread, you sell on cheese. So that when we're at, we'll go to wine tastings in New York where there'll be 160 wines to taste through. And at the first point, you just fill your pockets up with slices of bread and you go around and taste, and then you take bread as you go along. But you sell on cheese. Right? And so that when you come into our store, you'll be able to taste some cheese and wine and have some crackers too, but it always enhances the flavor. So now, if you have two things in your glass, sit down and we can really, again, give a little sniff to what's there and take a quiet moment to examine the two glasses, holding the glass properly by its base, not by its stem. Come on. Come on, if I can do it, you can do it. And then go from the Sauvignon Blanc to the Chardonnay. Yeah, it takes years and years and years, but you could just cut yourself some lemons, cut yourself some peaches, take the things that you see on the flavor wheel are all the aromas that you will get from a glass of wine or for different kinds of wine at different times. So, I always remember my young son, who eventually became a chef, when he was about 10 years old, he said to me, "Dad, what does a truffle taste like?" I said, "Well, it tastes like a mouthful of good dirt." So if you taste the truffle tastes like delicious dirt. And so you have to eat some dirt, and just smell things. Go out in your garden, smell the difference between parsley and sage. You know the smell of rosemary, but remember you can't recall it. So you have to constantly smell lemon, citrus, all kinds of berries, but pay attention to it so that you can recognize it. It takes many, many years of developing your ability to pick up the aromas. Yes. How do what? The flavors? Yeah, a good question. How do the flavors get into the wine? Well, essentially it comes from what I talked about before. It's the type of grape, right? And then it's the soil. So Sauvignon Blanc grown here is going to be much different than Sauvignon Blanc grown here, because some soil will be limestone and clay, and if the soil is limestone and clay, it's going to give the flavor of the juice a different flavor than if the soil is all rock and peat, right? Are there any Scotch drinkers in the house? All right, so if you drink Scotch, that peaty, some Scotches are like drinking a wet cigar, because it all comes from the water base and the peat that they use to fire the kiln. The same thing happens with wine. The nature of the soil is going to reflect the nature of the grape. And then the clone of the grape, but that gets really involved and complicated. There's a whole chemistry that goes into the production of wine. But if you walk away with anything tonight, it's to know that the best judge of a wine is you. So if you like it, it's good, right? But my job is to teach you to like what is good. Right? So, but if you like it, it's good wine. And whether it's $600 a bottle or $10 a bottle, like it and be proud of it and drink it and enjoy it. Enjoy it with food, enjoy it on your own, enjoy it with company. On Sundays after 9 o'clock Mass, everyone would come to my home to gather. And my grandmother would make wine. It was god-awful stuff. But we each got a glass, all the kids, everybody. You would have a tiny little bit. And we would beg my mother on Sunday to make what we called oven toast, which was essentially crostini. And so we would have dried butter, olive oil, spicy little slivers of bread with a little kind of bit of wine to be able to dunk it and eat it. And then hear
this glorious conversation going on between family members who loved each other and embraced each other. And we're dealing with some of the most important social issues and world issues of our time. I was born in 1943, and so being an Italian American at that period of time was not something you walked around proudly about. So you had to be very careful, and we had to search out and hear about the beauty of our heritage, because all the talk was about bad things that happened in Italy, and what we knew was the majesty of music, the joy of art, and the sacramental beauty of